Today is December 17, 2019. The Lawrence Board of Zoning Appeals is called to order at this time. I need a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes from November 19, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The minutes stand as written. If you've not done so, please sign in at the back of the room. And anyone wishing to speak tonight, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Answer with I do. Thank you. Do we have any special requests tonight, continuance, withdrawals, or waivers?
Madam Chair, for members of the board, for the record, my name is Russell Brown, an attorney with the law firm of Clark Quinn Moses Scott & Grahn, 320 North Meridian Street, Suite 1100 in Indianapolis. Here on your last matter this evening, 19 LSV 17, I need to request a waiver of the notice requirement and I'll give you a little brief explanation. We had to file an amended petition. We filed that amended petition on December the 3rd, adding one additional variance to our list. So we sent amended notice on December the 4th for that. These affected neighbors have received notice for 3 different hearings, and this would be the second notice that they received. So we did provide timely notice for the original petition. We added amended notice. It was noted as amended notice when it went out, and it was for the one additional variance request. So we do need a waiver of that requirement to 13 days instead of the 23 days. But that would be our request for a waiver this evening.
Thank you. I need a motion and a second, please.
I'll so move.
I'll second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Thank you.
We will now hear our first case. There's no old business. It's 19 LSV 15, 7650 Clarion Drive, variance of development standard of table 744-201-1 to permit a 14-foot setback. A 25-foot is required.
My name's Steve Bliss. I'm with Indy Mod Homes. We're the builder on the project, and these are the homeowners, Ralph and Kelsey.
Okay.
This property, do you want me to explain the situation?
You explain your case, yes.
Okay, so this property is approximately 6 acres. That was an extension of the existing community that was there, the original neighborhood. Never was finished because the 5 homes that were planned on the cul-de-sac where this house is going to sit were in the flood zone. So for whatever reason, they just never finished it, and they sold the property. Of the 6 acres, the literal asphalt, which is the cul-de-sac, is the only buildable piece of the property because it's in the 100-year flood zone. So what we have is the house. It was originally Oak Landing Road was the address. So the homeowners changed the address to Clarion Drive because that road actually dead ends into the property. And so that then became the frontage. So as a frontage, our setback then became 25 feet, which is actually the side of the house, but it's kind of an odd situation. If we move the house to 25 feet, the garage right now is, as it sits, is 14.7 feet from the property line. And it's a finished wall, no windows, nothing like that. It's just the garage for the house. If we move it back the additional 10.3 feet, the yard space in the back, the only usable yard space, it just gets diminished by 10 feet. It's very minimal. And then another interesting thing about it was it has all the infrastructure for 6 homes. It has the sewer system, the whole thing's in place, which is way overkill. But it starts encroaching on the house, the corner, the furthest back corners, furthest southern corner. And frankly, I just don't want to get into that. So anyway, for the homeowners, the biggest issue is staying away from the flood because it falls off pretty fast there behind the house, and they want to have some yard space. So if we could keep that at 14.7, still puts the nearest house approximately 50 feet away from the house. And like I said, it's in the backyard. It's an odd scenario. But that's what we're after on, that's why we want that. Does that make sense?
So where's it's a cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
Where exactly is the house going to be? Okay, is this a house?
Yes, single-family dwelling.
Huh?
Single family, yeah.
Okay.
And Clarion Drive, it literally is just a,
I mean, you pull in and then there's a cul-de-sac.
well, the cul-de-sac will be gone. It's being removed because it's just part of the property. It was there from when they did the original development.
Okay.
And Clarion Drive, it's as deep as the lots are because it was a road going to a cul-de-sac. Well, now it's just a road going to the property. No one else has access from that. So if I were them, I'd vacate it eventually or try, whatever. It's a private driveway basically now, Clarion.
So are they going to bring the house up further to where it's up with the houses?
No, because the Clarion Drive cuts through, and there's another road there in front that is, the other
Right.
houses are on.
Okay.
So,
You'll have a chance to speak. Just give us a second. We're trying to.
So this is Clarion. This
Uh-huh.
little stub
Right.
right there, and right there is where the one.
So is the desire not to encroach on the existing utilities responsible for the configuration of the house and garage? Is that why the garage is so far forward?
no, what it is the cul-de-sac, which I don't know if you have in your drawings the original cul-de-sac, the house is designed to it's a circular flat spot, and then all the way around that cul-de-sac, it falls off pretty heavy. So basically the L shape, the way it's set is to maximize where it's flat and give that back. The southernmost section would be their backyard. Basically from the two corners would be flat and then it falls off after that. If we move it back further, they basically lose. I mean, we could, push into the woods, but
If the garage was moved to the side of the house instead of in front, you wouldn't need to push it back, correct? Is that not possible?
with the design, it would be drastically, it wouldn't work with the design that's already, yeah.
And what type of facade will this house have on it?
It's going to have a, let me think about that a second. Lap siding. It's got 3 different types. Lap siding 7-inch. It's actually a high-end steel product that looks like, it's really a cool product. It's guaranteed for like 20 years without any fading, and self-healing steel. You can cut it, doesn't rust, all that. It's like Core 10 type stuff. And then we have board and batten style on different aspects of it, which is the vertical siding also, but it's just a 7-inch lap siding facing the north side. Did that answer your question?
There's no brick or anything on it?
No, no brick.
Okay, does the board have any questions?
And it's a wooded lot there. It has woods buffered between that, so it's even between the 2 houses, it'll have trees in that 14-foot area. There's quite a bit of growth there. It's not like you're going to see it.
So just to be sure I understand, because I drove out there and I saw it, it looks like you don't have a lot of room.
No,
A lot of trees and it's all tangled. So the house is going to be at the base of the cul-de-sac, at the bottom of the curve. It's not going to be like on the same, like right next to, it's not going to be, setback is further than the other houses. Right?
oh yeah,
It's going
yeah,
to be set way back
correct.
and it's little,
Right, the property line, just as a reference, the red property, well, I don't know what color sheet you have, but the property line on the north is where the circle of the cul-de-sac starts. And that is the furthest depth then of all the lots that are in that community. That's the back of
Right.
all those lots. And so ours would be setting back behind that. But this house, the footprint of the house actually sits on the existing asphalt cul-de-sac. Obviously, we're removing that because it's the only flat spot on that property.
It's on part of the cul-de-sac?
Pardon?
It's on part of the cul-de-sac?
It's on the cul-de-sac asphalt. That'll all come up
Okay, I see what.
because we don't need the cul-de-sac to turn it back into green space.
On this
Oh,
drawing,
You'll have time to speak.
150-foot square, I assume that's basically the
Yeah, that was in a reference. He actually blew that up on another sheet for some reason to show drainage, but the cul-de-sac, as it sits right now, the cul-de-sac is the very southern corner of the house. The circle is touching that.
Okay.
I don't know if you have that.
Thanks.
Okay. And then there's a dotted line that reference on the southern side, which is the flood zone, the 100-year flood zone.
Okay. And how many square feet does this house have?
Has a basement. The footprint of it is approximately 1,500 square feet. And then the garage, that's not including the garage.
Including the garage, okay.
So, do you want to know the garage?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, thanks.
Does the board have any other questions for the petitioner?
No, I don't.
Is this a mobile home or is it on a foundation?
It's foundation, full basement. Yeah. It's a fairly high-end home, actually.
A walkout basement?
Didn't go with the walkout because
Okay.
near the floodplain, it was kind of we talked about it and, it's a little dicey sometimes, so. And then also, Kelsey, the homeowner, mentioned that part of the problem is
Excuse me, if you guys want to discuss, please. Okay, thank you.
if we push the home back, then we're cutting trees down, and part of the thought was if we didn't have to get into the woods, just preserve that. So that was one of the other issues with pushing it back further.
Does the board have any other questions at this time?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. You'll have a chance to come back and respond. Anybody here for or against the petition? You have to,
I need to know the proper description because I.
ma'am, you need to step up to the mic. You need to step up to the mic and state your name and address, please.
Welcome to the area. My name is Dr. Amarjit Bains, and I own the property on 7701 with the 2 lots and the house over there, which is my retirement house. It is up on the hill and is by the side of the school for children. You have bought the lot in between, which I have seen flooded very badly.
You need to speak in the mic so we have a record.
And there is a creek there that really overfloods it. We have even fished in this creek. There is so much water in it. And you are asking further to move into the flooding area where the trees are up. Trees are going to fall on you. It's going to hurt the house as well as the water. You have bought the lot. I don't know how you.
So what is your question, or
My
what's your
question is,
concerns?
how am I going to be affected in front as parallel to the Oakland Road? Because there is a ditch over there and I'm up on the hill. So how are you going to get your outlet? If you're going to take your outlet on Clarion side, you're missing the boat in front. Think about this. If you are going to ask them to give you an exit to Oak Landon Road?
No, that's not what
That would
it's,
be a different issue.
what is in front of us is a setback requirements.
That would be a different issue. I am not much worried about me being affected. I am on a high hill, but I'm certainly worried about their lives.
Well, we're here to address the setback issue at this time.
Yes, but this was my concern, a health concern, being a physician of 40 years in that land for last so many years.
But there's no exits onto Oak Landon. It's coming into the housing addition.
But the creek is so bad and big that you cannot really see it otherwise unless you
understand.
know the injury it has caused to other people.
Our
I'm
concern is
sorry I
this.
had to come today and I could not come for the exhibit the whole week. And I have no objection, and they have invested. But they should carefully look before they present in front of the board, who do not have a proper description of what you have done. Mr. Norton is my real estate manager on my properties, and he has sent me here with the map. We investigated this. I even went to Rodney and Ralph Kelsey Bear's house, 7450 Griffith Road, and also tried to meet 1147 East 10th Street to tell them about the risks that we think that they are going to face. It's up to them to relook into their problem. These are the directions. I did try my best. Being a health concern and a physician who has practiced in this area for 44 years, you're a young couple and you don't want to risk your $250,000. So I've done my job. Good night.
Good night. Anybody else for or against the petition?
We received a, go ahead.
Hi.
Virginia Washington, 7737 Stratfield Drive. I've been there for 20 years. The questions I have are, what is the assessed value of the home going to be? Since it is a modular type home, all of us either have stick-built homes or we have brick on our houses, so I want to know about that. I'd also like to know, what will the home be as far as the Eagle Pines Homeowners Association? We have a vibrant homeowners association. We always assume that cul-de-sac was a cul-de-sac, not sold in the properties that were being sold. The 6 lots, we always thought would exit out to Oak Landon. That was the original survey information we got when we established our homes in that community, was a part of our covenants that we received. So now that we understand the home is being built on the asphalt, or the asphalt's being removed and the home's being built there, it basically takes away the cul-de-sac. Was the cul-de-sac purchased within the process? Was it never a cul-de-sac? Or was it just the short street that ends with sidewalks at the end of the property of lot 26 and 25? My other question is, since there will be no sidewalks in front of their home, will our community only be able to walk to the end of the sidewalk and walk out? We'll never be able to go into the cul-de-sac. And then on Fridays, when trash is picked up, where will you set your trash bins? Because the trash trucks cannot get down that short street and turn around and come back out. Will you pull them to the front of the community where the other homeowners' homes and driveways are? Where will you do that? And then lastly, we know that our covenant ends in 2025, so we assume that everything in the covenant that talks about the type of property, the lighting, you have to have a light in front of your home, brick, certain type of siding, certain types of layouts for either single dwellings, or if you have a larger home, you're expected to have shrubbery to hide all your utility boxes. I know you have 6 units there that all have drainage and pipes and I assume utilities. For your lighting, what will you use? There is no lighting in that cul-de-sac. It's always been a place that people go back there in the dark and drop off their trash at night. We've found lots of things back there. So I have lots of questions.
Okay, did you ever try to contact them or him?
We did not know who purchased the home or the lot.
But when you got your letter,
I did not know. I did not think that was appropriate for me to do.
okay, what is in front of us tonight, okay, it's not here to negotiate all this stuff or what, any of the above. We're here looking at the setback requirements.
Which
Okay.
does not match what's in our covenant, correct?
Question, right-of-way ends at the property line.
The right-of-way ends at the property line?
Yes. So the cul-de-sac is not part of the city's right-of-way. The city owns this part of Clarion Drive, but not the cul-de-sac.
So it's not,
So basically, Clarion Drive is a dead end where the cul-de-sac begins to come out and curve. It's not part of the platted subdivision.
Because it had a separate plot plan. Plot plan.
This is a separate plat from the subdivision plat.
That was supposed to exit
Clarion
to
Drive.
Oak Landon.
Literally, the city's right-of-way ends there.
okay, so that's where the cul-de-sac is,
Right where the
Technically.
cul-de-sac would begin
okay?
is where where we stop. The city does not maintain that portion, the circular part. That's on private property. We don't maintain that. That's never been deeded to the city.
Okay. So, again, what we're here for is the setback requirements. As for anything else, phone calls or meetings or whatever should have happened prior to coming here. That's not what this board does.
Okay.
Okay?
just say that
I
the-
know, I understand. I'm just explaining to you. And I see your concerns,
Okay.
okay? Again, we're going to be voting on the setback requirements. They can ask for a continuance, am I not right? The remonstrators can ask for a continuance to another meeting. The petition could ask, or we vote tonight. So that's what's in front of us. Those are your three choices.
Okay. So since it ends at Clarion, our community ends at Clarion, this is on private, the setback would be into our property or not on our property? So, but they would enter and exit through our property. Okay, thank you.
That is correct. Okay, if he doesn't, any remonstrators can ask for a continuance as well as a petition can ask for a continuance. We're not here to negotiate any of the above.
Vicki Carone, 7717 Stratfield Drive, also in that neighborhood. Welcome to the neighborhood. Not objecting to the request here, but based on what Virginia was saying about this being a change in what she was given as a contract when she bought her property, I guess I would like to request a continuance so we can look further into this, and maybe if a compromise could be reached as far as having the house look more cohesive with the rest of the neighborhood, then the setback may not be as big of an issue for us, to have some brick on it, some lighting. So my request is a continuance to give us a little more time to look into this.
How do you? Oh, well,
Can I speak a little bit onto this, or?
well, we have a request. Do we have a motion or a second for request of the remonstrators of continuing the case so they could talk and get this all worked out prior to us doing the voting?
I think that would be appropriate. I make a motion that we grant that continuance to accommodate that.
Do we have a second?
I will Second.
Second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I need to know if it's with or without notice, please.
With notice.
It will be with notice. And all those opposed? The continuance has been granted. Everybody get together next month.
If you want to talk out in the hallway, that's fine. Just make sure you shut the door for me, please.
19 LSV 16, 11850 Vernon Street, variance of development standard of section 740-1005-A-8 to legalize structure set within 5 feet of the required setback.
Doug and Mary Jane Marshall.
Go ahead.
We're just asking, we've been there 40 years. Some of these structures have been there almost 40 years. We built them after we moved in, and it's not an encroachment on anyone because there's a ditch behind it. We're 5 feet from the fence that's been there, we understand, 66 years. So we're just asking to be in compliance.
Excuse me.
I thought I recognized you, Mary Jane.
You know, I just saw your name. Oh, my God.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, you know, when I walked in, she's one of our past students.
I know. It was like, okay, I know this lady looks familiar. Okay. Nice seeing you, ma'am. Okay.
Thank you.
We're talking about the structures in back, the barns, correct?
Yes.
Okay, that,
And I can show you pictures if you'd like to see.
we have some here.
Oh, you've got them there. Okay.
So why all of a sudden, if you've been there 40 years?
We have no idea.
Okay.
We have no idea.
I got a zoning violation letter from Marion County and that.
Okay. So what we're doing is looking at those barns in the back, correct?
Yes.
Does the board have any questions at this time? And they've been there, it looks like they've had residency for a while. Okay. Any questions at this time?
Is this petition to have them permanently there as long as you live there, or?
Yes, we're asking.
Yeah, because it's less than the required 5-foot rear setback. It's right up against the property line, it looks like. Am I right? Yeah.
Okay.
So,
I was just wondering about if we were replacing them.
no.
I
They
mean,
just,
just like, say, a year from now or 5 years from
Oh,
now.
no.
One gets replaced bigger.
No, he's 76 and I'm 68. We've lived there 40 years. We don't want to replace them.
Okay.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
If they were to be replaced, they need to be set where they should be.
Or
And we can put that in the
the
request.
stipulation that it's for these buildings and these of this size. So if you
Mm-hmm.
replace one, I'd say go ahead if it's the exact same footprint.
Okay.
The only thing about that is, and the buildings right now are perfectly lined up. So if you had to redo one and move it up, it would look stupid. Whereas now it just looks really nice. It's just really,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know.
That's what I was saying. If it's the same footprint, I'd
Yeah.
say put it in the same place. It looks great.
But if you move it up, they
I was going to
replaced
say,
it.
if you go in and go, this is a 10 by 10, let's put in a 20 by 20, then we should probably come back to the board and say, hey, we're making this bigger now.
Oh, okay.
But wouldn't they have to come, if they did that, they would have to go get, if it's a 20 by 20.
They'd have to get
Uh,
a
Permit.
permit.
Yeah. So it would be caught at that time,
I would
correct?
just put it in the approval that put these structures in this location.
Okay.
That's good with me.
Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody for or against the petition?
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm James Ferge, F-E-R-G-E, like merge. I own the property next door to this property here. I guess 60-some plus years. So I've owned it for a long time. I mainly want to make sure that the easement to the east of him wasn't getting changed. Then the other concern I have, this goes back to the church property that's actually, yes, north of the property. That used to be Charlie Lane. In between where his shed is and that property line is, that used to be a natural ditch line. But when the church was
what?
a ditch, that was a ditch where all this, behind every one of those sheds. So what I'm getting at is, when they built the church, all the drainage lines and tiles that went through that property, because it all goes downhill, was disrupted. So the water drainage, because I own the property next door, I know how the water goes. I've been there since a kid. I'm 66 years old, so I know a lot about that property. So I'm concerned how many sheds you're supposed to have, for one thing, and then the other thing is, it's a wooden shed. And wood is, it's not like we're building them out of cedar. They're going to rot away. And being that then it's in a waterway right there currently, what's going to be the outcome 3 to 5 years now? So is that something you're going to be taking care of and have a zoning violation at that time and fix it? Because the neighbor next to him, I don't know who owns the property, but it's pretty bad. And I know you've been out there on that property also. This person here, I went to their house before, I knocked on his door before, I've talked to him before, and I tried to talk to him in regards to this prior, but he wasn't home, I guess, at that time. So I didn't get a chance to talk to him what was going on here. So I'm just concerned what's going to happen in the length. And then the other thing is the easement that there is, because like you said, that line of trees you see right there, that's where the fences used to be. The trees growed up in the fence, and the fence rotted away. If you look at the line it shows here, it shows it on the other side of those trees. So is this line accurate? Well, that's a question I have there.
This line, this here.
Because if that's the case, that line shows their house not on the property. That their house is actually in the easement to the west.
What that typically is, sir, is taking a flat picture of a round world.
Yeah, I realize
So when
it.
you're looking at these aerial photos, we allow a 2 or 3 foot
Margin
of error, I guess you would say, because it's
Well,
flattened on the round. So
I deal with some surveying aspect, and we can get it within a quarter of an inch
not in an aerial picture.
on
like
aerial.
this.
Okay. So that's why I was kind of
Just-
wondering.
just
Because
so
when
you
I'm
know,
looking at
we
this
don't
drawing
always-
here, when you see the property, which is my property next door, you see the distance between the white line and my property, and then you look to the west, you see their house, you see with the easement, and then if you look on the other side of this page here, the alley easement was 15 feet on one side of the property and 15 feet on the other side. Okay?
If you look at the house, the 11930 on Verdon Street, it looks like their garage is not on their property.
Yeah.
It's just the way the
Well, I don't have that
angle
drawing.
of the camera.
Well,
On
that garage on that property was built back on the original foundation.
I'm just trying to explain why the picture looks like it's off.
Okay, all right. So I just want to make sure there's some clarification. So if it's about his shed staying, is that the reason why he's here? Because he's got a complaint about the sheds?
Yes,
Okay, and so who made that complaint?
we don't know.
Okay,
Indianapolis issued a citation,
okay, all right,
and that's why they're asking to legalize them to resolve that citation.
okay, all right.
And if they were to get replaced, then they would have to come and get a permit that would require them to do the
Okay, then the other question I have, how many sheds can you have on a property?
If they're under 10 by 12, there's not a number.
Oh, you mean I could put a little mini housing addition in my property then, huh?
Well, you couldn't use them as living quarters.
Well, but I could use them for parts and chicken coops or whatever, you know?
The problem comes in when you overdevelop the property, so you have to have so much green space.
Well, that's what I'm saying is,
They have enough.
isn't this property here kind of overdeveloped?
No. That's not what they were
Okay.
The citations for the barns being too close to the property line.
Okay,
Not the 5-foot back.
all
It's
right.
not an overdevelopment of the property. It's just where the barn.
Well, the reason I asked is 1986, I tried to develop the property, the other empty lots I have, and because for some reason I couldn't do it. And then in 1992, Charlie Lane was given to the church when it backs up against my property. It's a 50-foot right-of-way for the easement for the telephone wires. But then it was all just given to the church. And I had a lawyer on that one. So, you know, I got a little bit of history there defending this property. So I would like to see it stay halfway decent around it. That's about it. Thank you for your day.
Thank you. Anybody else for or against the petition? We'll hear from DMD. Larry?
Thank you. We are recommend approval of this petition. If you look at the mortgage survey that was submitted to the file, it shows that there was a shed there before, or one larger shed, which basically is the size of the 3 sheds that are together, and then shows one other shed on the property as well, basically being consisting of approximately the same area as the 4 sheds that are there now. And, you know, the thing you look at with setback is how does it affect other properties? In looking at the adjoining plat for this site, there's an easement for Indianapolis Power and Light Company that's 33 feet wide, up to 72 feet wide at Oak Landing Road. And then abutting that is a 50-foot right-of-way for Trolley Road. And so there's no direct property owner besides these easements and right-of-way that are affected by them having this shorter setback. So we don't see how it affects the character of the area or has any impact on joining property owners. So we're supportive of the request to legally establish the sheds in this location.
Any questions for Larry, the board? Larry? You're from the City of Lawrence?
City of Lawrence has no opinion on this petition.
Petitioner, do you have any further comments? Board ready to vote? Variance, the board is voting on 0219 DLV 016, a variance of development standard of the consolidated zoning and subdivision ordinance to legally establish accessory structures with less than the required 5-foot rear setback. Only these structures in this location. The board has unanimously granted your petition. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
The board will now hear 19 LSV 17, 7600, 7602 Pillenden Pike, and 4326, 4327 Sellers Street. Right?
Yep.
Okay.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. For the record, Russell Brown, law firm of Clark Quinn Moses Scott and Graham, 320 North Meridian Street, Suite 1100 in Indianapolis. Also with me, Mark Susan Michael from Browning Development, who is the development consultant for the petitioner on tonight's project. Tonight's petition is the second step of 3 necessary to allow for the redevelopment of 5 parcels which literally sit at our city's front door, being approximately 4.25 acres located largely at the northwest corner of Pendleton Pike and Sellers Street. As all of you, as longtime residents of the city, will refer to this as the Knights Inn property, as the majority of this. The first step in this process was our presentation and receipt on December 2nd of a unanimous positive recommendation from the full Lawrence City Council to the MDC for rezoning of these parcels to the CS classification. And that will be on tomorrow's MDC docket, on their no appeals docket. And tonight's petition is 12 variance requests, and I'll try to be brief, not talk myself out of anything tonight as we move forward, but walk through those very briefly. Upon your approval and the approval of the Plat Committee of the pending vacation petition, which will be heard on January 8th, this project will become what the petitioner and the city's redevelopment commission hope to be the keystone of the Lawrence Trades District, providing a high-profile, standard-setting development as a primary entrance to the Trades District and to our city from northbound 465 traffic at Pendleton Pike. I provided you a few materials to walk through very briefly this evening. First is a press release that was released by the city in late September, announcing that the city had attracted the new corporate home of Freegee Engineered Solutions. Freegee is a nearly 6 decades old company with more than 150 employees, which offers mechanical, electrical, plumbing, design, build service to their customers, and it will offer out of this new location, a new corporate resident to the city of Lawrence. Next, we've provided, just as a matter of reference, a copy of the plan of operation from our CS zoning petition that discusses what will occur here, namely that the proposal is to provide nearly a 50,000 square foot building consisting of office, warehouse, fabrication, and training space, and on completion would be approximately a $4 million investment by Freegee at this corner. The plan references that in addition to the 4 parcels that are being acquired from the city's redevelopment commission, the petitioner is under contract to acquire a property across Sellers Street. It's the southeast corner of Sellers and Allen, which currently has a residential improvement on it. That property will initially be scraped and will eventually be utilized for fleet and outdoor storage affiliated with the primary use of Freegee's new primary use. The next document is a site plan, and there's a landscaping plan underneath that. I'll discuss each of those briefly. Those were updated yesterday in response to the staff report being issued last week. I provided them to Renee and Larry this afternoon, so I appreciate them that being part of tonight's petition. Those are in your packet, as well as I believe Renee printed them out before the meeting.
Are we talking about the loose ones, or?
They're the same. They're the same.
They're the same. Okay.
On the site plan, one of the primary features of this parcel is showing that this parcel has 3 front yards. It has a front yard on Pendleton Pike, it has a front yard on Sellers Street, and it has a front yard on Allen Street. As the staff report mentions, this is the genesis of a number of the variances we have before you this evening. The site has been laid out, and we believe the architecture used here is done in such a way that it will be to set the use and architecture standards for the Trades District. And we've tried to design it that way, but we do have design standard issues created by that layout. We have also provided to you, as the last 2 documents in our packet, is the proposed elevations. We believe those elevations are in conformance with that goal of setting the standard going forward. Additionally, one of the variances there relates to transparency from public entrances. Given that this use will have multiple uses within it, there is likely that more than just the front door will be a public entrance. So that's the reason, out of an abundance of caution, we've asked for that transparency variance. That's a new part of the rezone Indy modification coming into effect a couple years ago. If you've been on this site recently, you know that there's pretty significant elevation changes from south to north. And That will work well with the building design here. We'll utilize that elevation change to allow for kind of loading area to be on the north part of the property. But that also creates a variance because you have a loading dock without a drive aisle located on that primary frontage. So that's another one of the variances that are here before you this evening. We think we've tried to orient the building appropriately to the highest traffic rights of way, and the staff report appears to agree that that's been done appropriately here and done without negatively impacting surrounding property owners. We have a variance for bike parking. The new ordinance requires a certain amount of bike parking and a certain amount of that to be covered. The staff report did have concerns that we provided 0 in the original site plan. The modified site plan before you tonight provides for 5 spaces. None of them are covered, so that still requires a variance as it relates to the number and the fact they're not covered. But we have added 5 bike parking spaces to the site plan and would agree that we think that that complies with the spirit of the site plan's or the staff report's concerns. All but one of the remaining variances relate to the use of that property to the east of Sellers Street. As mentioned, that currently has a home and kind of an outdoor or a detached garage structure on it. The petitioner's intent here would be to acquire that parcel and to scrape that parcel, remove those structures in a short period of time, probably done 6 months or so after closing occurs. The repurposing of that parcel is kind of an added bonus. It's not necessary to the primary use of this, the initial primary use, but it is something that the petitioner sees value in acquiring, sees value in having as their operations grow and as their property grows. Therefore, they're not intending and don't have a budget currently to pave it. So we're asking for it to be allowed to be a gravel parking lot. We're also allowing it to be put into use without all of the required landscaping. The staff report provides a comment that we didn't provide details on the landscaping that would be there or that would be maintained. There are what appear to be heritage trees. We've not done a tree inventory yet, but there appear to be heritage trees on the east boundary and the south boundary of that property. We would commit to saving those as appropriate and as possible, and then to replant existing trees along the north property line. So those are shown in the landscape plan, and we'd agree to be bound by that landscape plan as it relates to that specific use. Again, that parcel has a history of having some challenges about being upkept appropriately. So we think acquiring it, removing a structure that has some ongoing history of challenges and putting it to use is a good one, even if it is used on a long-term kind of temporary basis as a gravel parking lot. So that's our request as it relates to that portion of the petition. One other feature that is part of our variance requests relates to the fact that there would not be new sidewalks installed along Sellers and Allen Street under this site plan. That is purposeful from both the city's side as well as from the petitioner's side. We have provided pedestrian connectivity to the main public entrance from Pendleton Pike, the existing sidewalk along Pendleton Pike. It's shown as a crosswalk, parking spaces eliminated so that you do have dedicated pedestrian access to the front door. But we don't anticipate a bunch of pedestrian activity into a plumbing and mechanical space, but for maybe employees or they use public transportation, that might be necessary. But as we've worked through with the city, there are some additional right-of-way improvements hoped for or planned for within the trades district. And so the goal of the city, and Cam Starnes is here and can maybe give a little more flavor to that, but the goal of the city is not to install pedestrian improvements that someday will be removed and reconfigured as the trades district develops. And so that is why we've requested that variance. It is not an oversight. It's not an attempt to shortchange this development, but it is a consultation and discussion that's been had as this deal has moved forward over the last several months. And our final variance request this evening relates to the consent required to move forward with the vacation petition for Plummer Street. As you'll notice on those site plans, we're building right over the top of what is currently Plummer Street. We have an existing vacation petition that is before the plat committee. The ordinance, the subdivision control ordinance, requires us to get the consent of all abutting landowners. This right-of-way dead ends into an adjacent landowner's property. That adjacent landowner has not given consent for the vacation petition. That's not from a lack of trying, but the petitioner, that property owner has not given their consent. So in consultation with staff, the solution was to file this request for a variance from having that to allow it to move forward. So we did move our vacation petition back 1 month in front of the plat committee so we could come to you tonight to ask for that variance. It's important to note that doesn't deprive the due process of that property owner from coming and raising objections before the plat committee. Though this is our second public meeting, it doesn't appear that we have anyone here an objection to that petition specifically, despite the fact they've received four public notices on this petition. So again, we think this is a unique situation. You have a public right-of-way dead ending into a property, and that property has other right-of-way access. Allen Street provides access to that parcel. So we're not asking, not that that's germane to what your consideration is tonight, but we think it's unique. I know staff has a concern about setting precedent of allowing you to file a vacation petition without having everybody's consent. But we think here it's unique in that one owner owns both parcels adjacent to the right-of-way seeking to be vacated. Dead ends, and that's the abutting property owner who's refusing to give consent. It's important to note that if we don't get that vacation approved, this project cannot move forward. The site plan won't allow for it. The size and scope of this redevelopment can't move forward without that vacation petition being granted. So we think that's super important to this project. It's important to the city. It's important to this petitioner as well. As mentioned, we have sent out numerous notices. I've received no comments from anybody, despite those repeated letters from my office. We did have one neighbor who appeared before the council. He had some concerns as it related to the corner of Sellers and Allen, specifically the parcel where we're removing the structure, about some clear site triangle issues that are there. We think those will actually be improved by the project that we're proposing. He has concerns about some of the drainage issues that you all undoubtedly know about in this area of the city. Again, this site will actually have some on-site detention versus the sheet draining that occurs now where you have no improvements there. So that neighbor is not here. He was very appreciative of the explanation that we provided before the council, and ultimately I think was satisfied with our explanation. So again, I provide that to you to just let you know that we have not had significant public pushback. We think the petition before you tonight is an important next step, and accordingly, we'd incorporate our materials into the record, including our proposed findings, and ask for your approval of all of these variance requests tonight. Mr. Sousa Michael and I are both available, and then Cam Starnes is here in his capacity on behalf of the city's redevelopment commission, and I believe intends to make at least a comment or two on behalf of this petition, and we're all available for your questions if you have any.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions at this time? I think you did an excellent presentation.
Yeah.
Anybody here or against the petition?
Yes, good evening. My name is Cam Starnes. I serve as legal counsel to and executive director of the Lawrence Redevelopment Commission. My office is at 1 Indiana Square, Suite 3500. I'm with the firm Taft, Stettinius, and Hollister. And I'm here to speak very much in favor of the project. I think, as Mr. Brown well noted, we very much regard this as an economic development project and an important one for the future of the city of Lawrence. Going back quite some time, a predecessor of mine was in the position of needing to defensively acquire and demolish the Knights Inn and the properties around it. due to deteriorating condition. So one of the first things that I looked at when I took on this role with the Redevelopment Commission was how we could maximize the impact of a development of that site to improve the area around it and really start a trend that would continue down Pendleton Pike, which currently contains a number of uses that we don't get very excited about. We have a lot of retail zoning and a very automobile-oriented development pattern. And as we looked at demographics around the site, we noted high instances of poverty and unemployment. And I think those things converge to generate a commercial market that is not producing the kind of development that we would like to see on Pendleton Pike. So with that in mind, we undertook a study and created a strategic development plan centered around this site that we called the Lawrence Trades District Plan. It seeks to harness growth in the trade sector of the economy to replace not only this former hotel property, but others around the site, we hope in the future, with skilled trades users, mechanical contractors, electricians, plumbers, general contractors, because we saw positive median wages that could mean good things for the local economy in terms of buying power. We saw potential pathways to gainful employment for area residents without the need for four-year or advanced degrees. And we saw a great need for workforce and a potential for that pathway to be developed in a way that is it really shows a lot of synergy between the needs of the community and the needs of the employers that we hope to locate there. We do regard this as the true cornerstone of the Trades District Plan. I've personally worked on this project for quite some time. We had always hoped to see that strangely split parcel between the former gas station and the Knights Inn really be consolidated into one impactful development that would be visible and make a strong statement. I think this does that. And I think some of the other concerns that city staff has noted are certainly warranted, and yet I still support this variance request. The house on the corner, I think Mr. Brown put it mildly, it's a problem in my eyes and that of the commission and neighboring property owners that have expressed that to me. So even an interim transitional use that would include a gravel parking area for a company like Free Engineered Solutions that is positive and growing and dynamic is far superior to its current state. And so I think that's a step in the right direction, so to speak. And I would say that as to sidewalks, we certainly value pedestrian mobility even through the skilled trades district. The plan does call for, and we have begun initial planning around some significant infrastructure improvements through the core of that corridor. The Redevelopment Commission last year acquired a parcel that awkwardly interrupts what is known as Record Street that connects Franklin Road, and that would become Allen Street that then ends up at Sellers right at the northeastern corner of this site, so that road can be connected and we could enhance the sort of the central east-west piece of infrastructure that runs through the entire district from Franklin Road to Sellers. And so we do have a plan to enhance that, to add sidewalks, to add curbs, gutters, and really enhance the infrastructure through the area. I do think, given that we have not fully designed that yet, there is a decent chance that this would be reconfigured and the sidewalks would need to be redone at some point in the future. So in this instance, again, I'm supportive of the variance request because I think it's consistent with the overall strategic development plan. I would also mention, lastly, just as to the neighbor there to the west and the vacation of Plummer Street, that currently serves as effectively a private drive cutting across from Seller Street to that property in combination with Allen Street. I don't doubt that it's somewhat convenient for the current owner, but we did have a traffic study, an engineering plan that indicates that delivery box trucks will still be able to make turning movements on the neighboring property to the west for delivery purposes, coming in from Allen and turning around and going back out Allen. And I would posit that any use of Plummer Street to make those truck movements as the site currently is situated would not be a legal use of the street anyway. So I'm supportive of the vacation there. We wanted to, again, maximize the impact of the development of this site. And vacation of Plummer Street is necessary in order for us to be able to do that in the form of this this very positive project. So I'm happy to answer any questions as to the redevelopment commission, our role in this, or our overall strategy or policy behind it.
Any questions?
Not for this, no.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else for or against the petition? We'll hear from DMD.
Thank you. We do support, I guess, the majority of the petition. Several of the variances basically relate to the fact that there are 3 street frontages on the site. I mean, when you look at the maximum building setback, that there's all 3 streets. On all 3 streets, they exceed the maximum building setback, sort of demonstrates that there is a practical difficulty when you have that many street frontages to address and to try not to, and to try to comply with the ordinance or to those type of standards that relate to street frontages. And so maximum setback, all the variances related to loading in the front yard, the excessive width, all those relate to the fact that there's 3 front yards that they have to address. And so we think there's an inherent practical difficulty for those particular variances. Then with a transparency variance, frankly, in looking at that, we're not sure they actually even need that one. And looking at the design of their building, they have plenty of transparency where we would, where you would normally expect them to have public pedestrian entrances. We think that was one of the highlights of our review of this, and that the building was attractively designed. And so we have no concern with the transparency request. If they actually do need one, we're supportive of it because we think they meet the intent and spirit of the ordinance with respect to that. Bicycle parking spaces. We were not supportive of the request, but we thought we also believed there was a misunderstanding of what they were required to have. They basically were only required to have 7 spaces. Their request indicated 5 spaces per, or some ratio that would require a lot more bicycle parking spaces than they were required to have. And so we felt there was no reason not to have a minimal number of spaces, and providing for 5 uncovered parking spaces or uncovered bicycle parking spaces to us is satisfactory. So we have no issue with that as well. So then the issues come down to the gravel parking lot. The landscaping plan that they provided for that shows preservation of the existing trees as well as planting of new trees is fine with staff. So we're not concerned about that issue either, though we are concerned about having well, the other issue is that it's an off-site parking lot. We don't have any concern about that. The ordinance allows for off-site parking lots in the compact area. And basically, this site is surrounded by the compact area on 3 sides. And so it's basically within the compact area without being within the compact area. And so we don't see that there's any reason to not support a variance for an off-site parking lot. The gravel portion of it, we do object to. I mean, the ordinance allows for gravel temporarily. So in a situation like now, if you were getting ready to move into a building and we're putting your parking lot together, you wouldn't be able to pave it. And you may not be able to pave it until later in the spring, especially if you have a wet spring and things like that delay actual stabilizing the parking surface, et cetera, and also waiting for the asphalt plants to open. You may be later in the spring before you get that done, so the ordinance allows for up to a year not to pave it. And so, but in most cases, you should be able to do it within 7-8 months, but it allows up to a year. We see no reason to extend that beyond a year. And if it is extended beyond a year, there should at least be some indication of what that final date would be when pavement would have to be provided for the site. So we do object to that particular variance. Then the variance for sidewalks. Again, I guess the explanation of improvements to the infrastructure of the streets, I guess could be considered a valid argument. Obviously, we have no proof or information as to what's going to happen in this particular area or when that's going to happen. But clearly, the streets in this area for an industrial park are not up to standard for what you would do if you were developing an industrial park from scratch. The streets are narrow for even residential development and clearly not up to standards for industrial use. So making improvements makes sense. And putting in sidewalks in a location that might require them to be removed would not be a good idea. We would agree with that. We just, in evaluating this, don't have that information as to how that's going to play out in the future. So it's hard for us to say, yes, we do totally support that request, but we do understand the issues. Particularly, not only are the streets narrow, but the right-of-way in the area is narrow. I think you have 40-foot of right-of-way on most of these streets. So anyway, so that could be an issue in developing a sidewalk network as well as widening the streets and allowing for proper movement within this industrial park area. But we at this point don't support that request. And then the last thing is waiving the requirement for consent for the vacation petition. This is the first variance that I've ever dealt with for that issue, and so again, the staff could find a way to reasonably support such a request. We surely don't want a avalanche of those type of requests coming, and I could foresee certain petitioners taking advantage of such a variance request if we supported them and they began being granted. We think the process of providing consent sort of keeps a level playing field and for everyone involved in that process, and allows petitions to go forward in a smoother manner when you have a consent up front, and you don't have as many contested sort of variance cases because all the negotiation has happened before they have even filed. So anyway, so we couldn't find a justification for supporting that. But again, we do recommend approval of the majority of the variance request and are satisfied with the modifications that provide for the landscaping and bicycle parking. So our only objections are, at this point, are for the gravel parking, sidewalks, and then the consent for the vacation petition. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Does anybody have any questions at this time? Thank you.
Larry, I was just thinking that when I worked for the city, probably I got more phone calls about children waiting on bus stops and trucks coming around and going over the sidewalk. I mean, that really is a dangerous area because we have residential and industrial. It seems to me the logical thing they're proposing is to restructure the whole thing with adequate turn radiuses and new sidewalks. So why put in sidewalks on those two streets that are not going to, we need to rethink the whole infrastructure.
Right. But I agree that if it's best to do it in a comprehensive manner, our staff was not privy to what is going to be done in the
It sounds like with Cam's
So,
testimony, they are working on that.
So, yeah, that gives the board different information than we had to make our decision, so.
Thank you, Larry. We'll hear from the City of Lawrence.
As Cam stated, the City of Lawrence is in support of this petition,
All the variances.
all the variances.
Mr. Brown, any additional information?
No, I just asked that our approval be subject to 5 bike parking spots and then the landscaping.
Just a what? Ron?
5 bike
Okay.
parking spots and then the landscape plan that was submitted.
So right now, it said waive the bicycle parking requirement.
We're still asking for a reduction because I think more than 5 would be required. I think 7 is the calculation that staff had. So we still would need a variance, but we would do 5.
You do 5 bicycle?
Yep.
Okay.
And then the
What
landscape.
about a time frame for paving?
If you want a time frame, I've been authorized to give you 10 years. I mean,
They gave you a time frame.
Yeah.
I mean, the goal is that we don't want it to be that way forever. The goal is to do it faster, but at the same time, too, that's, as I mentioned, that's kind of bonus space. And so it doesn't fit necessarily in the pro forma today. But as you add employees, as you add a fleet, it becomes more necessary. And then it would be utilized more frequently. And at that point, it would make sense to have it paved. So if you want a time frame, we would offer 10 years would be.
Well, better than nothing, right?
So is the end goal for that eventually, within this 10-year time frame, for it just to be still parking?
Yeah, it will be utilized as parking, as fleet parking or as for outdoor kind of trailer storage or those types of things that would be affiliated with that use. So always affiliated with that use.
Okay, so you want me where it says staff approval of the variance request except for the following: to provide for gravel parking without landscaping.
These are the 12 variances requested.
So, Madam Chair, I think we would just do it with a commitment, with 3 commitments. The commitment that the temporary gravel lasts no more than 10 years after the removal of the residential structure. That we provide 5 on-site, 5 bike parking spaces, and that the landscape plan as it relates to the the property on the east of Sellers is done in accordance with the plan that's submitted tonight.
Which includes saving as many.
Heritage trees if possible, and then replanting or planting trees along the northern boundary. And I'm happy to reduce those to writing and submit them to Renee.
And that's number 6, the relief from parking lot landscaping on the lot east of Cellar Street. Okay.
So we would still need it because I don't think we comply strictly with those obligations, but we would commit to it being substantially in conformance with what's before you tonight. And the CS statement provides that there's administrative review for site plan and landscaping plan. So they would check that that's in conformance when we get building permits.
The commitment to preserve the heritage trees. Okay?
Let me see if I get this right.
Okay.
After we vote. Well, that's what we'll vote on.
Right, this is what I'm going down.
I just see 1, 2, 3, and I can list them in the minutes.
Okay,
Okay.
okay. We will now be voting on 2019 DLV 017, the amended variance requests. We'll be voting on 1, 2, 3. They will provide 5 bike parking spaces. 4, 5, it will be paved within 10 years. 6, they will preserve heritage trees. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Correct?
Yep.
The board has unanimously granted your petition.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think this will be a perfect footprint coming into the city.
And I'd like to thank Cam for coming. Thank you, Cam. It's very helpful.
I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas,
Merry Christmas to you.
Happy Holidays.
Before we all leave, I wanted to vote on changing the time of our meetings, please.
Oh,
We'll need a motion. Second.
and the motion is to change it next year to 6 o'clock.
Yep.
We'll need a second.
A second?
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Want to fourth it?
Wait, are we going for the vote?
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second to change the meeting time from 7 to 6 o'clock. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, those opposed? Our meeting time has changed to 6 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.